Okay.
Are you already filming?
Yep.
Do you want to introduce? Shall I go? Or whatever.
How
Today's our 1 year anniversary for since we launched LensAdvizor. When was our first customer? September 8th, you said.
Yeah, September 8th, 7th or 8th, I can't remember, is when the first customer signed up. But at that point, the app wasn't even ready. I remember like they were just so excited to try it.
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, you can sign up, and they did. And we're like, oh yeah, don't use this yet. And it took us another 2 weeks before we could actually launch it proper. So.
Oh wow, yeah. And so yeah, I guess we just had our first 12 months of being live.
Yep.
As our title indicates, we're really excited, right? We've just almost hit basically the $8,000 a month MRR, like monthly run rate.
Monthly recurring revenue.
Monthly recurring revenue, sorry.
Yeah. ARR, annual recurring revenue. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and I was just going to say that, this is by no means some type of we haven't made it by any means. We still have, there's much more that we want to do, but we also thought it'd be fun to just commemorate sort of the last 12 months, as well as, if any of you guys are thinking of, starting a new business, maybe building a Shopify app, we thought we'd share with you some of the steps that we took to build it.
So if you're looking at starting your own Shopify app, maybe we can give some learnings that we've had over the past 12 months and give a more realistic view of what it is to build a Shopify app and whether it's really worth undertaking that journey given where you are in your life right now too, because it is quite a commitment. So yeah, let's jump through it. Maybe we just talk through the story of building LensAdvizor and what it took to build it, where it is now, where it's going to go in the future.
Yeah, sure. With anything, you have to come up with sort of you have to get the idea in the first place. And I think the idea, it definitely started with my experience running Rocket Eyewear. So I think I may have mentioned this in the previous video that we did, but basically because of COVID last year, we started selling sort of glasses in addition to our regular sunglasses. And there was just not a nice, easy way to sell prescription lenses on my Shopify store. And when you look at any of the leading online eyewear stores out there, they all have a really nice, slick checkout process for when that lets a customer enter their prescription, choose different lenses based on their prescription. I wanted to basically offer the same thing on my website. I noticed that it didn't exist. I noticed that there was nothing on the Shopify App Store that offered remotely, what I was looking for. And so I shared the idea with Z. And what did you think initially?
Well, initially I was a little bit hesitant because I think we discussed it as well. We're like, there's probably not that many stores. The market size isn't going to be that big. But after talking about it back and forth, we're like, hey, let's just build it. There was also quite a bit of research that we had to go through to come to that conclusion that it would be really worth it. But at that point, when we started doing the research, we already had the idea that we were going to build an app. And then we said, is it really going to be worth it to build something for all of the stores out there? Like, are they even going to use it? Will it eventually pay for itself? Because we're going to spend a good chunk of money to get this thing up and running. So is it going to work? Maybe you can speak to a little bit of the research that you kicked off, because I think you were really instrumental in making the research happen.
Well, I think it helps when you sort of, you can intimately sort of intuit an opportunity, which I was able to sort of I was privileged to be running I am privileged to be running an eyewear store, and so I sort of knew that this was something that I would like, and I had a feeling that other eyewear stores would like it as well. Z's totally right. I mean, one of the big concerns we had was okay, how many eyewear stores are there even, right? That could use us, and when we there are some websites out there where you could find Shopify stores, and you type in keywords like eyewear and stuff, and when I typed it in, I mean, there was literally I mean, we weren't very excited when we saw there's probably only like 700 potential eyewear stores total, right?
Yeah,
And
I think it
like,
was 700, and we were like, oh, it's not a big market, is
yeah,
it?
not really. We're going to put so much, time and effort into building this. But to be honest with you, the idea just haunted me because I knew this was an opportunity. I knew there was a gap, however small. There was a little opportunity here, and at least on my end, I owe a lot of credit to my fiance Tanya for this, because I remember going on a walk with her, and I was just sharing my excitement, but also my doubts about pursuing this idea. And I think maybe she's just so fed up of hearing me talk about it over and over again. And she basically just said to me, Ming, she's like, okay, Ming, like, how are you going to feel if somebody else builds it? And actually that was like such a simple, powerful question to ask, because I would have been so mad if somebody built it and we didn't, even though it's such a small opportunity. So I was like, she was like, yeah, then you have to do it. I was like, yeah, you got to do it. Yeah. And I think it's not the most scientific like way of research, but
at the very least, you knew that you had to build it for yourself.
Yeah.
And you thought, well, if someone else builds it and other stores start using it, then you would have felt that FOMO, like
very much
I
so.
could have built that for these stores too.
Yeah.
But you needed it, so it was a pretty easy equation for me as well. It's like, at the very least, we have one customer, and we'll just build it for you to start. And so that was reaffirming. But then we went out. Maybe we can speak to how much work we put in at the beginning.
Oh, sure.
To get these, like, to contact stores and stuff. We found this list of 700 stores, and you immediately went out and said, okay, let's contact like 200 of them. And I can't remember how many it was, but it was like a significant number, and you just sent out emails to everyone.
Yeah.
How many stores did we end up talking with?
Yeah, I think we spoke with like 40 or 50 stores.
Yeah. And this is before we wrote a single line of code. We had not even really a mock-up. It was just really the idea, and you had like copy pasted some things together.
Yeah, I think it really helps when you have. I think this is jumping into another topic entirely, but it really helps when the idea is not so far removed. Like there's some evidence of it somewhere, and so I basically wrote to every eyewear store I could find, and I said, hey, would you be interested in being like a beta tester when we launch? We're thinking of building an app that does this, and I pointed to some leading eyewear stores that had this exact like experience, and so yeah, you just have to like write to everybody that you can find. And I remember when we got our first email response, it was should I say your name? I mean, sure.
It
was
okay.
Elaine from Pacifico Optical, and he was like, yeah, that sounds really interesting. Want to have a chat? We arranged a Zoom call, and that was really, really exciting. And then we just had more and more Zoom calls with different eyewear brands, and eventually we were like, okay, we have about 40 people that have like expressed interest in sort of trying us out when we launch. And at that point, it was just, okay, we're doing it. Yeah. But let's be honest, like we were thinking of doing it already, but this just helped us like, confirmation bias, right? Like, so.
But I think we had enough. At that point, we had the design ongoing.
Yeah.
And we were speaking with all of these stores. And I think if we had like no response whatsoever at that point, maybe the design would have been finished, but we would have said, okay, let's just build it for you.
Yeah.
And we're not going to worry about building an app. But because we had that positive response, we said, now we can go forward with actually developing the app itself.
Yeah, I think that if we had written to about, as I said, about 700 stores. If, entrepreneurs are always like, they always look, the glass is half full. I don't know. If we had 5 stores say yes, would you have agreed to build it?
That would have been tough.
Yeah.
I think almost every store that we were able to get on a phone call with said they were interested. They said they were interested. I knew that there'd be like quite a bit of attrition there. Even if they said they're interested, maybe only 50% of them were actually going to go through with it, or maybe even 20%, but at least some would go through. If we had, out of like the 100 we contacted, if only 5 had said yes, and out of the interviews we did, 5 out of 40 had said, yes, I'm interested, I don't think it would have been that interesting to build for us.
Yeah.
But we had enough confirmation. Almost every single store that we talked to said, yes, I'm interested. A few of them said, as soon as you create this, I will sign up.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the confirmation that we needed to just continue with the development.
Yeah. So that's sort of, I think that was the beginning, sort of just, idea, validate it, and then take the plunge.
Yes.
Building.
Yeah, it's a big plunge. So like, I guess I can take that, which is how do you even start that? So luckily, I'm in a relatively fortunate position that I have a history of doing technology development, and this allows me to be able to assess, developers' capabilities. We interviewed quite a few, like different teams. There's a couple ways that you can go about it. You could hire an individual developer, you could hire an agency, you could go out and raise funding and build an entire team internally. But the way that we decided to go at it was to find the right agency that could do it for us. We interviewed quite a few, and then we settled on one agency that was about the middle of the price range, but based upon the interviews we had with them, we had a lot of confidence that they could deliver the product. I think a lot of people make a mistake at this stage, which they tend to hire either the cheapest or the first person they find that says that they can do it and gives them a good sales pitch. Like, I remember we talked with one dev shop that had like a great sales pitch, but the front guy was simply a salesman. Like, we didn't talk to a single developer there, but it sounded so good. Like, they gave a really great sales pitch, and the guy we were talking to, very charismatic, but ultimately we really thought about that and said, like, if we can't interface directly with the developers and we're always talking to just this project manager, are we really going to be able to execute quickly on what we're going to do? And instead of going with that developer, we decided to go with a small team that had a big interest in succeeding with us, because their reputation was also on the line. They're a small growing company that also wants to succeed. And so they were able to put a lot of care into building our app in the way that we envisioned it to be built. So I think selecting your developer or the team that's going to develop your app is also a really important step in this journey. And you should spend quite a lot of time doing it.
So talk to me. I mean, we built version 1.
Yeah.
Some stores signed up.
Yeah, so last September we launch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Version 1, we build it, launch it, yes. And then immediately people are like, I need this.
Yeah.
Which is a great sign.
Yeah.
I mean, number one, do you remember how it felt to get that first $1 sign up? Like, I barely remember it.
No.
Yeah. I remember, I know the first store that signed up.
I mean, that felt amazing. The way Shopify's like billing system works is a mystery to me. You have no idea like which sort of like where you in. I mean, it's very hard to track basically.
Yeah.
So I don't actually remember the first like $1 that we made, but I do remember like the first stores that signed up for us, and it's the most amazing feeling.
Yeah, it was pretty great. But one thing I was surprised at was that we had done these interviews with 40 stores that were really interested, and how many of them, when we sent out the mail that said like, hey, we've launched, please download the app, try it. Like, I was really disappointed. Like, I remember like 4 or 5 of them replied and said, oh, okay, like I'll try it.
I'll try it soon or something like that.
Right. But we had like 40 of them just waiting, or so we thought.
Yeah.
And in fact, only 10% of those were really in it with us.
Yeah.
The rest, eventually most of them actually did end up like downloading it, trying it. But the fact is, those initial yeses most of those are probably not actually going to follow through.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they're busy with their lives, running their stores, doing their things. and they'll get to it when they get to it. But I think that was a hard lesson for me because I was like, I was expecting like 35 signups, and we didn't have that.
Yeah, I think that's right. So it took a while, I guess, for us to ramp up.
Yes.
The first 1 or 2 months was definitely a, I don't know. I imagine with most businesses, you start off very slowly, and eventually, as more people try you out, your reputation grows a little bit, and you can sort of reach out to other stores and say, hey, like store X, Y, and Z are using us, and it adds a bit of social proof to your pitch.
That's true. Actually, maybe you can speak a little bit to that, because I think you've been mostly focused on, say, the marketing side, and making sure that we have new people coming in. That at the very beginning, you placed a lot of importance on like two things. Is one, writing to new stores, these potential stores. Out of the 700 store list that we had, you crafted this email that said, hey, X, Y, and Z are using this. And you sent this out to everybody on the list.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, there's a fine line between sort of, needing to get the word out and sort of emailing too often. So I think initially, I planned to email every store. I think at least twice. I would send them an email, and then 3 days later, if they didn't respond, I would send them a follow-up. But those early days, we were doing Zoom calls at all times of the day because, I think a lot of stores of ours are based in the U.S. and or Europe and stuff, and the time difference can be quite challenging. But it was lockdown here. We didn't really have anything else to do, and so we were really taking calls at all times of day. So we talked them through, how everything worked. But I think that I did this. I did the initial sort of like when we launched. I emailed everybody that expressed interest. Those that didn't respond the first time, also, I just said, hey guys, we're live. And I probably spent a total of, say, the first 2.5 months sort of like doing that initial emailing. And then I didn't do much more, actually. It started sort of like taking a life of its own after like the 3rd or 4th month in terms of I wasn't actively like emailing anymore. I've begun again now that it's been a whole 12 months later.
Right.
But I feel like,
But there was another aspect that you also were really for, and I think that was critical, and that is getting positive reviews.
Yes.
So is that because of your experience in building your Shopify store that you really understand or have this idea that you need to have these positive reviews in the App Store? Or
yeah, definitely. I mean, look. I think one of the reasons why we have a YouTube video of ourselves on the Shopify App Store too is to personalize the app. It's to let potential partners, well, I call people who subscribe to our app partners, like let them know it's two of us behind it. You can contact us anytime, because a lot of times, you just don't know who the app developer is. You don't know that there's just a lack of transparency, and so along with that, when you write to a store and you get them to click the link and go to your actual Shopify app listing, and there's 0 reviews, there's still it takes a huge leap of faith, basically, to trust a brand new app. So the first couple stores that left us a review, it immediately increases, I think, our trustworthiness. And yeah, you can just imagine, you go to an Amazon listing and, there's not a single review. It's very hard to change, to take that leap. And so I think that really helped. We're not tracking this. It's not like we have, metrics on every single part of the funnel, but I would, I believe that the conversion rate probably improved dramatically from 0 to the point we had 3 reviews. Yeah, I think just putting yourself in the minds of like your potential user,
Yeah.
and try to make it as easy as possible for them. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had another aspect I think we wanted to talk about, which was support and customer support.
Oh yeah.
So I've taken this on, so I could speak to that quite a bit, which is one of the things that we decided early on was to install a plugin into our app that allowed customers to message us. And there's many of them out there. We're using one called Intercom, and that allows people while they're inside our app to like chat with us directly. And that literally sends a message to my cell phone. And at the very beginning, for sure, I would respond literally as soon as I got a message. And I think this, in the early stages of the app, for sure, this is hugely beneficial. We got a lot of positive feedback. People are like, well, thank you so much for being so responsive and for solving the problem. And I think that contributes to the conversion from a free customer to a paid customer, that once they feel they can rely on you, they are much more likely to convert. And we saw this over and over again. Someone would install the app and they would say, oh, hey, the products aren't showing the button. Mm-hmm. And within a couple minutes, I would log into their store and fix the problem. And they'd be like, oh, this is great. They'd ask further questions. And before you know it, they're on a paid plan because they know that you can solve their problem. And I think probably we converted, I mean, maybe it's 25%, maybe it's 50% of the customers now are converted that way. But in the early stages, it was probably like 99%. Because number one, our app had so many problems that we needed to fix. And giving them assurance that we were hearing the problems that they were experiencing and that we were ready to fix them, that it was on the way, gave them a lot of trust in what we were doing and allowed them to wait out the bumpy patches. Mm-hmm. And there's been a few customers that couldn't wait. They've gone away, basically, because there were features and whatnot that weren't there. And since you've restarted this marketing campaign, actually a lot of them have come back now that the features are in place.
Yeah. One thing I'll add too to that is, you mentioned that at the beginning you used to respond to everything as soon as you could, and Z's response time is still incredible, but I think as the number of subscribers has grown, you've also realized that if you literally, respond to every message as soon as it comes in, your entire day is, anything you had set out to do like that day sort of like gets sort of hijacked by sort of like customer support. So I guess you batch it now, you try to be more efficient with your time.
Yes, though I will say that when it's a blocking problem, I'll try and solve it immediately.
Yeah.
But now the app is a little bit more mature, and so there's fewer of these types of problems. Now it's more like feature requests or, hey, let me know, does your app do X? Or they want to solve some problem, but it's not the pressing problem where, hey, your app's not working, why not? And those problems I still answer immediately.
Yeah.
But right now we're seeing a lot more of our customers that are buying the app, they're able to do it completely on their own. So they're able to get the setup done, get the checkout set up the way they want it to, and we don't even hear from them at all. And that's my goal, is to get like 99% of new customers where it completely just works for them.
It works on autopilot, so automatically for them.
Yeah.
And so I guess the last step, again, we're nowhere near sort of like the end of our journey. I think this is, it's just a nice milestone that we've had this live for 12 months. And so I guess talking a bit more about development and developing new features. So I had my initial requirements for my brand, and we built that to sort of like the best of our ability there. And we continue to sort of improve the app because we get a lot of great ideas / I need this requests from stores, but that's given our app the ability to, or the opportunity to really evolve into much more than what it was when we originally conceived of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about maybe some of the features that we're building because of them? I mean, this allows our app to, so the last bit about sort of what we want to talk about, I guess, is scaling the business out of the, say, version 1, right?
Yeah. I think there's a distinct break that we had where we said our app is stable enough, now we need to change our pricing. And there was a very distinct break there. And so we had this initial scaling problem, which was simply serve the current customers as well as we could and build the features they need and get the app to a steady state. And I think that we've done that actually pretty well. And now that we've built out some of these features, some of them we can talk about, which are like add-ons.
Yeah.
The ability to add any product into your checkout flow that you want to. A good example of this is like the case that comes with your lenses and your frames that you just bought. And giving stores the ability to do this unlocks huge value potential for them. And we see more stores coming to us with other feature requests, such as limiting the lenses that are shown based upon the prescription that was entered. And this allows them to sell more expensive lenses and not lose as much money in the transaction. So all of these things we're building to increase the value that our customers are getting out of the app and the value of the orders that are coming through when the app is used. And so we've been able now to scale at least a little bit with these features. And as we tick off each feature, more and more brands are interested in using our app because it meets the feature requirements that they need. And I guess the next step then is what? I'm also trying to think.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast where they were interviewing the founder of MailChimp. And it was funny because I think at this point he had grown his company to maybe 300 employees. And it was one of those all hands meetings. And one of the employees said, so what's the strategy? And his answer at the time was, oh, what strategy? We don't have a strategy. Do you know what I mean? I think a lot of startups start off that way. And it's natural. I mean, do we have a strategy? Yeah, we just want to, keep growing and sort of serve our customers well. But I think that's kind of at least for the next foreseeable future, we just want to make a really awesome app for our stores to use.
Yeah.
Even though we've hit a nice little milestone, maybe you can emphasize.
To that end, I mean, so we're making let's say $8,000 in revenue now every single month, but we're reinvesting 100% of that back into the business.
Probably more, actually.
Yeah. Because really what we want to build is a app that the customers find valuable, that the brands can use, and that provides value for their store. And
I'd also add to that speed too. So of course we could add features slowly if we tried to keep the, try to take a bit of profit every month. But we want to be the best. Yeah. And so we have to reinvest everything so that we can build features quickly for our stores because our app is sort of operates in the most critical sort of stage of a customer's buying journey, right? We're not like an app that works sort of on the, About Us page or something like that. We literally convert the add to cart button into a prescription lens selection button. And so anything that stores need, there's always urgency around that because we're literally dealing with the conversion rate.
And one mistake that we make literally affects the bottom line of the stores that installed our app. Yeah. So we can't make a mistake.
You could, if our app is down, a store, full disclosure, I remember there was an issue with the way our app was recording sales at the time or something like that, and a store wrote to us and said, hey, because of your error, we missed out on like these 5 orders that happened.
Yeah.
And this equated to like a loss of revenue of X. And we can't argue with that. It's true.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's totally true.
Yeah.
Like,
So we had to, we had to make it up to them. So like it's very measurable in terms of revenue, sort of like, well, you could argue like revenue boosted, but also lost because of our app. So yeah, that's why for us, like speed is of the utmost importance.
And for the foreseeable future, like, so we haven't taken a single penny from this app. And for the foreseeable future, we won't.
We will get ourselves a steak
yes.
at Ruth's Chris when we get to 10K.
Exactly. When we hit the 10K mark, that steak is
ribeye,
ours.
a ribeye.
Yes. But that will be the entire compensation
Probably for next year.
Like probably
Yeah.
the whole year.
Yeah.
But what that all comes down to is reinvesting back into the app, back into your business, back into yourself, and it's all delaying that future gratification. But that has a lot of value, because what we'll do in exchange is we'll generate value for our customers and build a more valuable app in the meantime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and one more thing I will also add, that I think that obviously building a SaaS app like ours, where it's sort of a very small niche market, is not for everyone. It must be said that, like, you and Z and I are in a very fortunate position right now, because we have we have sort of external sources of income. Right, so we're not depending on the app right now for income, which is why we're able to sort of reinvest all the profits. So there's definitely, we're very fortunate to be able to take this slow and deliberate approach towards growth, and it's completely understandable why it may not be applicable to everyone else.
And for the people that want to grow quickly and don't have the money, well, then they have to seek funding. But that's an episode for another day on.
Oh yeah, you can talk about that.
Yeah, how to take funding and whether you should, and we can talk about like the reasons why you should or shouldn't another day. But I think that wraps up our LensAdvizor story up until now. Let us know in the comments or on Instagram, message us directly what else you want to hear about the LensAdvizor story, or other things that you would like us to dive deeper into. All right, so that wraps up our episode 2 of our LensAdvizor journey. Please remember to like this video and subscribe down below so that you can learn about more of the things that we're doing in entrepreneurship and also in the markets. We have a lot of exciting things coming up. See you next time.